On a warm summer's day not very long ago, the Triangle region of our state was treated to a wildlife festival at Durham's Lee Farm Park.
Okay.
The stars of this festival were some of the wild things that may be found in North Carolina. This little guy, an eastern box turtle and North Carolina's state reptile, is called Mr. Lumpy because he has a lumpy, misshapen shell. Like all too many of these animals, Mr. Lumpy was hit by a car, and since he didn't heal completely, couldn't be returned to the wild. Not so with this fellow, however.
This is a northern pine snake, visiting from the Museum of Life and Science. He can be found in North Carolina, in the Sandhill regions.
Deep in our state's Great Dismal Swamp, you might find one of these.
His name is Ed. We call him Ed because he's our education gator at the museum.
Ed and company have been brought together here to delight and educate festival visitors.
That's the poison snake, right?
This is the place where children, and folks who used to be children, may find baby birds clamoring for their lunch. These are starlings, actually non-native birds. Or they might busy themselves helping build a bluebird house.
There, can you hammer that in for me?
Or check out a regal red-tailed hawk.
Hey, birdie!
A hawk's feet, or talons, are designed to snatch prey in flight.
One of the fastest animals on Earth is a diving falcon, about 200 miles per hour. Basically, we'll take that foot and make it into a fist, hit the bird in the head.
Gail Abrams, executive director of the Piedmont Wildlife Center, located here at the park, knows a lot about hawks. And owls, another common North Carolina raptor. And she loves to talk about them.
The good story is he's still alive, and he's very fat because he eats very well.
Houdini is a screech owl, one of our state's smallest owls. He was hit by a car and can't see well enough to return to the wild, so the Wildlife Center uses him as an educational bird.
The Piedmont Wildlife Center has a mission to support native North American wildlife through education and scientific study, with an emphasis on the conservation of wildlife and its habitat in North Carolina. Do you know something neat about owls' ears?
They can be uneven placed.
Smart guy. Owls have asymmetrical ears. One is up and one is down. So owls have really adapted to hunting at nighttime when it's pitch dark out here.
Among the programs they offer is a summer camp, where all kids have to do, it seems, is show up to have a good time playing games, walking the trail, or exploring a bat box.
So where do you think the bats go in? These little cracks. There's not a lot of opening here.
An adventure that both children and adults enjoy is to go on a nighttime owl prowl.
We try to get people out to experience nature as it is. And when you take somebody out into the woods at nighttime, there are different sounds and different things that people hear and not quite understanding what they are.
One of those sounds, hopefully, is a nearby owl. If there's one out there, Gail can make it sit up and listen. Not far away from Lee Farm Park, a group of wildlife professionals and volunteers at the Triangle Wildlife Rehabilitation Clinic looks after the medical needs of our wild friends. This great horned owl is being treated by the Wildlife Clinic's director, Pamela Bain, staff veterinarian Dr. Leslie Martin, and volunteer Tamray Matheson.
I don't really know exactly what happened. It's hard a lot of times to tell for sure.
So here he is. He's very weak, and he's got some eye things going on.
The owl may have been caught in some sort of either a trap or just something that snagged its leg and had some very bad injuries to one of its legs.
This bird was sent to the Carolina Raptor Center near Charlotte for rehabilitation.
Unfortunately, the owl did not make it, so that was a big disappointment.
But there's always one more to care for and hope for. In this case, a big barred owl.
We were hopeful because during her exam, she looked good. She had normal neurological signs. So this is an X-ray. So what we're looking at here is part of the flight apparatus. Right through here is the clavicle, which allows them to fly. You can see on this side how it comes up very nicely. It's smooth and even. And the one on the other side is just broken.
And the good news is that after a bit of R&R, this owl can take to the skies once again. Professionals at both the Piedmont Wildlife Center and Triangle Wildlife Rehabilitation Clinic agree that if people chose not to throw edible trash along the highway, fewer mice and rats would be attracted for owls and hawks to eat. And there would be many fewer raptor injuries and deaths. And drivers need to watch out for other small animals as well.
Yeah, so he was run over, but he had some very serious injuries right through here. We're actually pressed way into the turtle. So they had to put on these hooks, which you can actually lift up fragments with them, and then they're wired together. We also placed wire ties across this fragment, and we were able to stabilize it against the neighboring pieces.
All's got to be nearly perfect for release. If patients would be compromised in the wild because of their injuries, like the festival turtle Mr. Lumpy, they become educational animals.
Oh, he's been eating, so that's good.
Containers for turtles, cages for birds, plus medical and other supplies are a constant need at the wildlife clinic, and donations are cheerfully accepted.
Welcome the day like this, like a turkey vulture.
And as at the Piedmont Wildlife Center nearby,
Anybody else have any questions about how to make
volunteers make up the organization's backbone.
We are always looking for good volunteers, and we're fortunate to have many volunteers here, but we never have enough to do the intensive care for these animals. If it's a baby bird, we feed those babies every 30 minutes for 12 to 14 hours a day.
Which gives a whole new meaning to the term intensive care. But then, that seems to be the name of the game here at the Rehabilitation Clinic, and at the Wildlife Center as well. It's a labor of love, a small drama in a big world that plays out every day, 24/7, 365 days a year, for the benefit of North Carolina's wild things and the people who care for them.